The morning sun streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Cathedral, painting rainbow patterns across the white marble floors. Natalie Brooks stood in the bridal suite, her heart fluttering with a mixture of excitement and nervousness as her sister Jessica adjusted the delicate lace veil that cascaded down her back. The ivory wedding gown, with its intricate beading and sweetheart neckline, fit her perfectly, hugging her slender figure before flowing into a magnificent train that seemed to go on forever. "You look absolutely breathtaking," Jessica whispered, her eyes misting with tears as she stepped back to admire her older sister. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out to fix a loose curl in Natalie's upswept hairstyle. The younger woman had spent 3 hours that morning perfecting every detail, from the pearl hairpins to the subtle smoky eye makeup that made Natalie's green eyes sparkle like emeralds. Natalie took a deep breath and studied her reflection in the full-length mirror. At 28, she had finally found the man of her dreams, or so she thought. Trevor Hamilton had swept into her life 2 years ago at a corporate charity gala, charming her with his confident smile and ambitious talk about building an empire in real estate development. He was everything she thought she wanted: successful, handsome, attentive, and ready to settle down. Their whirlwind romance had led to an engagement ring worth more than her annual salary and a wedding that had cost close to $200,000. "Are you nervous?" Jessica asked, squeezing her sister's hand gently. The younger Brooks sister wore a blush-colored bridesmaid dress that complemented her auburn hair, which she'd inherited from their Irish grandmother. Terrified, Natalie admitted with a shaky laugh, pressing her hand against her stomach to calm the butterflies that seemed to be performing acrobatics inside her. "But in a good way, I think. This is it, Jess. This is the beginning of the rest of my life." Jessica smiled, but there was something uncertain in her expression, a shadow that passed across her face so quickly that Natalie almost missed it. Before she could ask what was wrong, there was a sharp knock on the door. Their father, James Brooks, entered the room, looking distinguished in his tailored tuxedo. His salt and pepper hair was neatly combed back, and his blue eyes were slightly red-rimmed with emotion. "My beautiful girl," he said, his voice thick with feeling. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and pulled Natalie into a gentle embrace, careful not to crush her dress. "Your mother would have been so proud of you today." Natalie felt tears prick at her eyes at the mention of her mother, who had passed away from cancer 5 years earlier. She blinked them back rapidly, not wanting to ruin her carefully applied makeup. "I wish she could be here, Dad." "She is here," James assured her, tapping his chest over his heart. "She's right here, watching over you, making sure everything is perfect." He paused, his expression growing serious as he held his daughter at arm's length. "Natalie, honey, are you absolutely certain about this? About Trevor? Marriage is forever, and once you walk down that aisle, there's no turning back." Something in his tone made Natalie's pulse quicken with unease. "Dad, what are you trying to say? Is something wrong?" James opened his mouth, seeming to struggle with his words, but before he could respond, there was another knock, this one more urgent and insistent. Jessica hurried to answer it, revealing one of the wedding coordinators, a flustered young woman with a clipboard clutched to her chest. "Miss Brooks, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation," the coordinator said breathlessly, her eyes wide with alarm. "A man has arrived at the church with some kind of envelope. He's demanding to see you before the ceremony begins. Security has tried to escort him out, but he's insisting it's a matter of life and death. He says his name is Dominic Sterling." Natalie's breath caught in her throat. Dominic Sterling. The name sent a jolt of electricity through her entire body, awakening feelings she had tried desperately to bury over the past 2 years. Dominic was Trevor's biggest business rival, a self-made billionaire who had built a tech empire before he turned 30. He was also the man who had looked at Natalie with such intensity at that charity gala 2 years ago, the man whose dark eyes had seemed to see straight through to her soul, the man she had felt an inexplicable connection to before Trevor had claimed her attention. What could he possibly want? Jessica asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. "This has to be some kind of trick. Trevor said Dominic has been trying to sabotage his business deals for months." I don't know, Natalie said slowly, her mind racing. Her hands had gone cold despite the warmth of the room, and she could feel her heart pounding against her ribcage. But if he's here, if he's making a scene at my wedding, it must be important. Absolutely not, James said firmly, his jaw setting in that stubborn way that Natalie knew so well. This is your wedding day, sweetheart. You're not going to let some business rival of Trevor's ruin it with whatever game he's playing. Tell security to remove him immediately. But Natalie's instincts were screaming at her that something was terribly wrong. She had always prided herself on her intuition, the same intuition that had made her one of the top financial analysts at her firm. And right now, every fiber of her being was telling her that she needed to know what was in that envelope, no matter how much it might hurt. No, she said quietly, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. I need to see him. I need to know what he has to say. Natalie, you're getting married in 20 minutes, Jessica protested, grabbing her sister's arm. 300 people are waiting out there. Trevor is waiting out there. You can't just. I have to, Natalie interrupted, pulling away gently but firmly. She gathered up the front of her dress, the heavy silk and lace suddenly feeling like a prison rather than a dream. I'll be quick. Just give me 5 minutes. She swept out of the bridal suite before anyone could stop her, her heels clicking against the polished floors as she made her way through the corridor toward the main entrance of the church. Her mind was a whirlwind of confusion and dread. What could Dominic Sterling possibly have to tell her that was so urgent he would crash her wedding? Why now, after 2 years of maintaining a careful distance? The cathedral's main hallway was decorated with thousands of white roses and twinkling fairy lights, a fairy tale setting for what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. But as Natalie rounded the corner and saw Dominic standing near the entrance, his tall frame rigid with tension and his handsome face set in grim lines, she knew with terrible certainty that her fairy tale was about to become a nightmare. Dominic Sterling looked exactly as she remembered him, perhaps even more striking in his expensive charcoal suit that fit his athletic build perfectly. His dark hair was slightly longer than conventional, giving him a roguish appearance that contradicted his reputation as a ruthless businessman. His eyes, an unusual shade of gray that reminded her of storm clouds, locked onto hers the moment she appeared, and she saw something in them that made her blood run cold. It wasn't triumph or satisfaction at disrupting her wedding. It was pain. It was regret. And beneath it all, it was a desperate urgency that told her whatever he had come to say would change everything. Natalie, he said, his deep voice rough with emotion. He took a step toward her, then stopped himself, as if remembering the boundaries between them. In his hands, he clutched a thick manila envelope that looked like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry to do this to you today of all days, but I couldn't let you walk down that aisle without knowing the truth. I couldn't let you marry that man without giving you all the facts. What truth? Natalie asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Her hands were shaking now, and she clasped them together in front of her to hide the tremor. Dominic, what are you talking about? He held out the envelope, his jaw clenched so tightly she could see a muscle jumping in his cheek. Trevor Hamilton isn't who you think he is. He's been lying to you from the very beginning. I hired a private investigator 3 months ago, not to sabotage his business, but because I saw him with another woman and children in Connecticut. I needed to be sure before I came to you. The world seemed to tilt beneath Natalie's feet. She reached out blindly for the wall to steady herself, her elaborate wedding dress suddenly making it hard to breathe. What are you saying? I'm saying Trevor is already married, Natalie. He has been for 7 years. His real name isn't Trevor Hamilton. It's Trevor Hammond, and he has a wife named Caroline and 2 children, a boy and a girl, ages 6 and 4. Everything you know about him is a lie. Natalie's fingers trembled as she opened the manila envelope, her engagement ring catching the light and mocking her with its brilliance. Inside were photographs, bank statements, property deeds, and official documents that painted a picture so devastating she could barely process what she was seeing. There was Trevor, her Trevor, with his arms around a beautiful blonde woman and two children at what appeared to be a family barbecue. Another photo showed him kissing the same woman on the porch of a colonial-style house in Connecticut. Birth certificates listed Trevor Hammond as the father. A marriage license dated 7 years ago confirmed everything Dominic had said. "No," Natalie whispered, her voice barely audible as she flipped through document after document. "This can't be real. This has to be some kind of mistake." Dominic's expression was filled with anguish as he watched her world crumble. "I wish it was a mistake. I've spent the last 3 months hoping my investigator got it wrong, that there was some explanation. But Natalie, it's all true. He maintains 2 complete lives. He tells Caroline he travels for business, and he tells you the same thing. The properties he claims to develop? Most of them don't exist. He's been using investor money to fund both households." The photographs fell from Natalie's numb fingers, scattering across the marble floor like fallen leaves. She could hear music starting in the sanctuary, the string quartet beginning the prelude that would signal the ceremony was about to begin. 300 guests were seated and waiting. Her father was probably pacing in the bridal suite. Trevor was standing at the altar, smiling that confident smile that had made her fall in love with him, completely unaware that his entire house of cards was about to collapse. "Why?" Natalie asked, looking up at Dominic with tears streaming down her face, no longer caring about her makeup. "Why would you care? Why would you go through all this trouble to investigate Trevor? We barely know each other." Something shifted in Dominic's eyes, a vulnerability breaking through his usual guarded expression. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes that suggested sleepless nights and heavy burdens. "Because 2 years ago, at that charity gala, I spent 3 hours talking to you about everything and nothing. We discussed philosophy and market trends and your dreams of starting your own investment firm. And in those 3 hours, I realized I had never connected with anyone the way I connected with you." Natalie's breath hitched. She remembered that night too, remembered how easy it had been to talk to Dominic, how he had actually listened to her ideas instead of dismissing them. She remembered feeling something shift inside her chest when he laughed at one of her jokes, a sensation that had terrified her with its intensity. But then Trevor swooped in, Dominic continued, his voice rough with emotion he was no longer trying to hide. "And you chose him. I stepped back because I could see you were happy, or at least you seemed happy. But I never stopped watching from a distance, never stopped hoping that maybe someday, when the timing was right, I could tell you how I felt." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and pain evident in every line of his body. "Then 3 months ago, I saw him with that woman and those children, and I knew I had to act. I couldn't let you marry someone who was living a lie." Before Natalie could respond, the door to the sanctuary burst open and Trevor appeared, his expression morphing from confusion to alarm as he took in the scene before him. He was handsome in his custom tuxedo, with his perfectly styled blonde hair and his practiced charm, but now Natalie could see the calculation behind his blue eyes, the way he was already formulating his defense. "Natalie, sweetheart, what's going on?" Trevor asked, moving toward her with his arms outstretched. "Everyone's waiting. We need to start the ceremony." "Don't," Natalie said sharply, taking a step back. Her voice echoed in the hallway, stronger than she expected. "Don't come near me. Don't call me sweetheart. Don't pretend for one more second." Trevor's eyes darted to Dominic, then to the photographs scattered on the floor, and his face went pale. For just a moment, his mask slipped, and Natalie saw something cold and ugly beneath the surface. "Whatever he told you, it's a lie. Sterling has been trying to destroy me for years. This is just another one of his schemes." "Really?" Natalie's voice was ice. She bent down and picked up one of the photographs, the one of Trevor kissing Caroline. "So this isn't you? These aren't your children? This marriage license with your real name, Trevor Hammond, is fake?" The color drained completely from Trevor's face. Behind him, guests were beginning to emerge from the sanctuary, drawn by the commotion. Natalie could see her father pushing through the crowd, his face a mask of fury. Jessica was right behind him, clutching her bouquet like a weapon. "I can explain," Trevor started, but his voice lacked conviction. He was trapped, and he knew it. "Explain what?" A new voice cut through the tension like a knife. A woman appeared at the cathedral entrance, blonde and elegant despite her obvious distress. She was holding the hands of two small children, a boy and a girl who looked exactly like the ones in the photographs. "Explain how you've been lying to both of us for years. Explain how you've been stealing from investors to pay for your double life." Caroline Hammond stood in the doorway of the church like an avenging angel, her designer dress and pearl necklace suggesting she came from money, real money, not the fake wealth Trevor had manufactured. Her blue eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady as she addressed the growing crowd. "My name is Caroline Hammond," she announced, her voice carrying through the hallway. "This man is my husband. We've been married for 7 years, and these are our children, Benjamin and Sophie." She looked directly at Natalie, and there was no anger in her expression, only profound sadness and empathy. "I received a call from Mr. Sterling's investigator 2 days ago. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way." The hallway erupted in chaos. Guests gasped and whispered. James Brooks lunged toward Trevor, but 2 groomsmen held him back. Jessica rushed to Natalie's side, wrapping protective arms around her sister. Through it all, Natalie stood frozen, watching her entire life implode in real time. Trevor's carefully constructed facade finally shattered. "You don't understand," he said desperately, looking between Natalie and Caroline. "I never meant for any of this to happen. It just got out of control. Caroline, I love you and the kids. And Natalie, I love you too. I can fix this. We can work this out." "You love no one but yourself," Dominic said coldly, stepping between Trevor and Natalie in a protective gesture that was both possessive and gentle. "I've already contacted the FBI about your investment fraud. They'll be waiting for you outside." As if on cue, 2 federal agents in dark suits appeared at the entrance, their badges glinting in the afternoon light. Trevor's eyes went wide with panic, and he made a desperate move toward the side exit, but more agents blocked his path. Within seconds, he was being read his rights and led away in handcuffs, his protests and pleas fading as he disappeared from view. Natalie watched it all happen as if from a great distance, her body numb with shock. The wedding that was supposed to be the happiest day of her life had turned into a nightmare broadcast in front of 300 people. Her fairy tale romance had been revealed as a criminal con. Everything she thought she knew about the man she planned to marry was a lie. Caroline approached her slowly, hesitantly. "I know this doesn't help, but you dodged a bullet. He's a convincing liar. I believed him for 7 years before the cracks started showing. You're lucky Mr. Sterling cared enough to investigate." Natalie looked at Dominic, who was watching her with concern etched into every feature of his handsome face. He had destroyed her wedding, exposed her to public humiliation, and shattered her illusions about love. But he had also saved her from making the biggest mistake of her life. He had risked her hatred to give her the truth, expecting nothing in return except knowing she was safe. "I need to get out of here," Natalie said suddenly, her voice breaking. She couldn't breathe in this dress, in this church, surrounded by pitying stares and whispered gossip. "I need to leave right now." "I'll take you anywhere you want to go," Dominic said immediately, shrugging off his suit jacket and draping it over her shoulders, a gesture that felt both protective and intimate. "My car is right outside." Jessica squeezed her sister's hand. "Go. I'll handle everything here. Dad and I will take care of the guests and the vendors. You just take care of yourself." Natalie nodded, unable to form words past the lump in her throat. She let Dominic guide her through the crowd, past the shocked faces and camera phones, past the elaborate floral arrangements and the wedding cake that would never be cut. As they stepped out into the sunshine, away from the wreckage of her dreams, Natalie realized that sometimes the worst moments of your life are actually the moments that set you free. 6 months had passed since the wedding that never was, and Natalie Brooks barely recognized the woman she had become. The humiliation and heartbreak that had consumed her in those first weeks had gradually transformed into something else: determination, strength, and a fierce independence she hadn't known she possessed. She stood now in her own office, a sleek space on the 15th floor of a downtown building, looking out over the city skyline as the sun set in shades of gold and crimson. Brooks Investment Consulting had opened its doors 3 months ago, and already Natalie had built an impressive client roster. Her years of experience as a financial analyst, combined with the publicity from the wedding scandal, which she had learned to use to her advantage rather than hide from, had made her something of a celebrity in financial circles. Women especially sought her out, trusting someone who had been publicly deceived yet emerged stronger. "Working late again?" a familiar deep voice asked from the doorway. Natalie turned to find Dominic Sterling leaning against the frame, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Over the past 6 months, he had become a constant presence in her life, though they had both been careful to keep things professional. He had provided the seed money for her company as a silent partner, had introduced her to potential clients, and had been there for every milestone and setback without ever asking for anything in return. "I could ask you the same thing," Natalie replied with a smile that came more easily these days. "Don't you have an empire to run?" "My empire can wait." Dominic walked into the office, and Natalie noticed he was carrying a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "I heard from Jessica that you landed the Morrison account." "That's huge, Natalie. That's Fortune 500 level." Natalie felt warmth spread through her chest at his genuine pride in her accomplishment. "I couldn't have done it without your introduction." "Thank you, Dominic. For everything." He set the glasses down on her desk and began opening the champagne with practiced ease. "You could have and would have done it. I just opened a few doors. You're the one who walked through them and impressed everyone with your brilliance." The cork popped softly, and he poured 2 glasses of the golden liquid. To Natalie Brooks, who took the worst day of her life and turned it into the beginning of something extraordinary. They clinked glasses, and Natalie took a sip, the bubbles tickling her nose. She studied Dominic over the rim of her glass, this man who had completely upended her life and somehow made it better in the process. He had proven himself to be everything Trevor wasn't: honest, supportive, patient, and genuinely invested in her happiness rather than his own gain. "Can I ask you something?" Natalie said, setting down her glass. "That night at the gala 2 years ago, before Trevor interrupted us, what were you about to say? I remember you started to ask me something, and then he appeared with those ridiculous roses." Dominic's expression grew serious, vulnerable in a way he rarely allowed himself to be. "I was going to ask you to dinner. A real date, not a business networking thing. I was going to tell you that in those 3 hours of conversation, you had captivated me completely. That I wanted to know everything about you, your favorite books and childhood dreams, and what made you laugh at 2 in the morning. Why didn't you say something after? Why did you just let Trevor take over?" "Because you lit up when you saw him," Dominic said simply, a hint of old pain in his voice. "Your whole face transformed, and I realized you were already interested in him. I'm not the kind of man who forces his way into someone's heart when they're looking at someone else. So I stepped back." Natalie moved closer to him, her heart pounding. Over the past 6 months, she had tried to deny the growing feelings she had for Dominic, telling herself it was too soon, that she needed time to heal, that jumping from one relationship to another was a mistake. But the truth was that her feelings for Dominic had always been there, buried beneath her relationship with Trevor, waiting for the right moment to surface. "I'm not looking at anyone else now," she said softly, reaching up to touch his face. "I'm looking at you." Dominic's breath caught, his gray eyes darkening with intensity. "Natalie, are you sure? I don't want to be a rebound. I don't want you to wake up one day and realize you confused gratitude with something else. Is that what you think this is?" Natalie asked, frustrated by his noble restraint even as she appreciated it. "Dominic, you've had countless opportunities over the past 6 months to take advantage of my vulnerability. You could have pressured me, manipulated me, used my gratitude to get what you wanted. But you didn't. You gave me space and support and friendship, expecting nothing in return. Do you know how rare that is? I would wait forever for you, Dominic said, his voice rough with emotion. If that's what you needed, I would wait. I don't want you to wait anymore. Natalie closed the remaining distance between them, her hands sliding up his chest to rest on his shoulders. I want you to kiss me. I want you to stop being noble and patient and tell me what you really feel. Something fierce and possessive flashed in Dominic's eyes. His hands came up to frame her face, his thumbs stroking her cheekbones with exquisite tenderness. What I really feel? I'm completely, devastatingly in love with you. I have been since that night 2 years ago, and watching you grow stronger and more confident these past 6 months has only made me love you more. You're extraordinary, Natalie Brooks, and I want nothing more than to spend the rest of my life showing you how extraordinary you are. The kiss, when it finally came, was nothing like the kisses she had shared with Trevor. Those had been performative, designed to make her feel swept away and cherished. This kiss with Dominic was real, honest, passionate but also gentle, reverent but also hungry. It was a kiss that promised partnership and respect alongside desire. It was a kiss that felt like coming home. They pulled apart slowly, both breathing hard, foreheads resting together. I love you too, Natalie whispered, the words feeling right in a way nothing else had in a long time. I think part of me has loved you since that first night, but I was too scared to acknowledge it. Before Dominic could respond, Natalie's phone buzzed with an incoming text. She glanced at it and felt her stomach drop. Trevor. The message read, I'm out on bail. We need to talk. Meet me at Russo's at 8. Please, Natalie. I can explain everything. Dominic saw her expression change and tensed. What is it? Trevor, Natalie said, showing him the message. He wants to meet. Absolutely not, Dominic said immediately, his protective instincts flaring. He's facing federal charges for fraud and bigamy. He's desperate, and desperate men are dangerous. I know, Natalie agreed, deleting the message. But I'm not the same woman he left at that altar 6 months ago. I'm not afraid of him anymore. Yet even as she said it, a chill ran down her spine. Trevor Hamilton, or Hammond, or whatever his real name was, had proven himself to be an exceptional liar and manipulator. What if he tried something desperate? What if he tried to hurt her, or worse, hurt Dominic? As if reading her thoughts, Dominic pulled her close. I won't let him anywhere near you. I promise. The next evening, Natalie found herself getting ready for the annual philanthropy gala, one of the biggest charity events in the city. Dominic had invited her as his date weeks ago, back when they were still pretending their relationship was purely professional. Now, as she slipped into an elegant navy gown that hugged her curves and cascaded to the floor in soft waves, she felt genuinely excited rather than nervous. Jessica helped her with her hair, sweeping it into an elegant updo that showcased her graceful neck. You look absolutely stunning, her sister said, stepping back to admire her work. Dominic is going to lose his mind when he sees you. You don't think it's too much? Natalie asked, studying her reflection. The woman staring back at her was confident, poised, nothing like the broken bride from 6 months ago. It's perfect, Jessica assured her. You're perfect. And Nat? I'm really happy for you and Dominic. He's nothing like Trevor. He's the real deal. When Dominic arrived to pick her up, dressed in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean build, the look in his eyes made Natalie's breath catch. He looked at her like she was the only woman in the world, like she was precious and powerful all at once. You're breathtaking, he said, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips for a kiss that sent shivers down her spine. I'm the luckiest man alive. The gala was held at the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, with crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and a who's who of the city's elite in attendance. As Natalie walked in on Dominic's arm, she could feel eyes turning toward them, whispers following in their wake. She knew what they were saying, there's the woman who was left at the altar, now dating the billionaire who exposed her fiancé. Let them talk, she thought. She had nothing to be ashamed of. They danced, they mingled, they laughed together in a way that felt effortless and natural. Dominic introduced her to potential clients and spoke about her company with such obvious pride that Natalie fell a little more in love with him with every word. This was partnership, she realized. This was what love was supposed to feel like: supportive, equal, genuine. But the perfect evening shattered when Natalie excused herself to the restroom. As she emerged into the hallway, she found Trevor waiting for her, looking haggard and desperate in an ill-fitting suit. House arrest and impending prison time had taken their toll on his formerly polished appearance. "Natalie, please," he said, reaching for her. "Just give me 5 minutes to explain." "There's nothing to explain," Natalie said coldly, stepping back. "You're a criminal and a liar. Whatever you have to say, tell it to the judge." "It wasn't supposed to be like this," Trevor said, his voice cracking. "I did love you, in my own way. Caroline was a mistake from my past, and I couldn't figure out how to get out of it without losing everything. The business deals, the money, it just spiraled out of control." "You mean your Ponzi scheme spiraled out of control," Natalie corrected. "You stole from innocent investors to fund your double life. You were going to steal from me too, weren't you? That joint account we were going to open after the wedding?" Trevor's silence was answer enough. Natalie felt a surge of gratitude for Dominic, who had saved her not just from a fraudulent marriage but from financial ruin as well. "I can change," Trevor insisted desperately. "If you testify on my behalf, tell the court that I'm a good person who made mistakes, maybe they'll go easy on me. We could start over, somewhere new. Just you and me." The audacity of his request left Natalie momentarily speechless. "You're delusional if you think I would help you after everything you've done. I'm not the naive woman you manipulated 2 years ago, Trevor. I've built a successful business, I've found real love, and I've learned that I'm stronger than you ever gave me credit for." "Real love?" Trevor's expression twisted with ugly jealousy. "With Sterling? He only wanted you because I had you first. This is all just a game to him, Natalie. Once he gets bored, he'll move on to the next conquest." "You're wrong," a deep voice said from behind Trevor. Dominic appeared, his expression dangerous as he positioned himself between Natalie and her ex-fiancé. "I wanted her long before you tricked your way into her life. And unlike you, when I make a commitment, I keep it." Trevor lunged forward, perhaps intending to throw a punch, but Dominic was faster and more skilled. He caught Trevor's arm and twisted it expertly, forcing the other man against the wall without breaking a sweat. 2 security guards appeared moments later, summoned by a concerned guest who had witnessed the confrontation. "Mr. Hammond is in violation of his bail conditions," Dominic told the guards calmly, still restraining Trevor with one hand. "He's been ordered to stay away from Miss Brooks. I suggest you contact the authorities." As Trevor was led away, still protesting and making threats, Natalie realized her hands were shaking. Dominic immediately pulled her into his arms, his embrace warm and solid and safe. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle despite the tension still evident in his body. "I am now," Natalie said, and she meant it. Seeing Trevor again hadn't filled her with longing or regret. Instead, she felt only pity for the hollow man he had revealed himself to be, and gratitude for the escape she had made. They returned to the gala, but Natalie found she no longer wanted to be surrounded by crowds and small talk. "Can we leave?" she asked Dominic. "I know the night isn't over, but—" "We can do whatever you want," Dominic assured her, already heading toward the exit. "Your comfort is more important than any charity event." They ended up at Dominic's penthouse apartment, a stunning space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Natalie had never been there before, and she found herself charmed by the unexpected warmth of the space. Yes, it was elegant and expensive, but it was also lived in, with books stacked on tables and photographs of family and friends displayed with care. "There's something I need to show you," Dominic said, leading her to a room she hadn't explored yet. He opened the door to reveal a music room, dominated by a beautiful grand piano. You remember when I told you I wanted to be a musician? Natalie nodded, moving closer to the instrument. You said you still play sometimes when you can't sleep. I've been playing a lot lately, Dominic admitted, sitting down at the bench. Because I've been thinking about you. About us. About how terrified I've been that I'll somehow mess this up. You won't, Natalie said, sitting beside him on the bench. We won't. Because we're in this together, right? Right, Dominic agreed. He began to play, his fingers moving over the keys with surprising grace and skill. The melody was beautiful and melancholy, filled with longing and hope intertwined. I wrote this for you. I've been working on it for 6 months, trying to capture what you mean to me in music. Natalie listened, tears streaming down her face, as the man she loved poured his heart out through a piano composition that spoke of patience and devotion, of standing in the shadows and waiting for the right moment, of loving someone enough to let them heal before asking them to love you back. When the last notes faded, Natalie turned to him and kissed him with everything she had, trying to show him without words how much his love meant to her, how grateful she was that he had crashed her wedding and changed her life. Marry me, Dominic said when they finally broke apart, his gray eyes shining with emotion. I know it's soon, I know you might not be ready, but Natalie, I've waited 2 years already, and I don't want to wait anymore. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life with you, support your dreams, have children with you if you want them, grow old with you.